monster cards tend to hog the limelight, traps are just as valuable. Especially these incredibly powerful Yu-Gi-Oh! Trap cards. "You've activated my trap card" is a phrase every fan of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime has uttered at least once. One of the three major types of cards in the game, trap cards are meant to protect a player's monsters, and all their life points, during their opponent's turn, allowing the game to have a bit of interaction during both players' rounds. For various reasons, trap cards aren't quite as useful to competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! As they once were, but that doesn't mean there weren't some scary ones that existed at one point or another. For this list, we're going to be looking at the most iconic trap cards ever created. Before we dive in, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. This 1-second action will really help us for making more videos like that. Alright, let's get started.
いけマグマネオススーパーヒートメテオけど僕のブラックマジシャンガールも全ての攻撃を跳ね返す魔術を持っている。トラップ発動マジックシリンダー。何
Number 10. Vanity's Emptiness. Vanity's Emptiness was meant to be a card to help slow the game down. The idea is that once a player flipped something like this, they could stop all the special summoning until something went to the graveyard. Unfortunately, what's impossible to account for are the decks that are already good at incorporating something like this. Like all Floodgate cards, what eventually happens is the faster, better deck special summons all the monsters they want, set this card, then passes to their opponent. After their opponent draws, they flip this up, leaving them stuck against a full field of monsters. It's good they banned this. Number 9. Soul Drain. Soul Drain was a card that was considered so powerful it was limited on the ban list for years, having only recently gone back to the 3 copies per deck. Many decks heavily rely on effects that activate in the graveyard, which is what gave Soul Drain so much power. 1000 life points is a small cost to pay in order to completely shut down the opponent's strategy, and while being able to negate banished monsters' effects isn't as useful, it is a solid bonus to an already powerful effect. Soul Drain is a card that only gets better as time goes on, as more cards with graveyard effects enter into the meta. Number 8. Royal Oppression. Royal Oppression is one of the most deceptive cards on this list. After all, it does say that both sides of the field can use it whenever they like. Plus, it comes with a hefty 800 life point cost to activate. But it inherently benefits the person with the most life points at the time of activation. That in itself is bad enough, but there are plenty of decks that can rely entirely on their normal summon. When that happens, since most decks run monsters that are meant to be special summoned, it places the opponents back against the wall automatically. It is asking a lot to somehow have enough resources to force an opponent to not use this card. Number 7. Last Turn. Last Turn was part of a unique OTK that turned it into a real pain for anyone trying to play competitively. The trick to it was to flip the card while having a monster like Jaugen the Spiritualist already on the field. Every card is sent to the field on the opponent's side of the field, so there's nothing they can do. Once Jaugen the Spiritualist is on the field, the opponent can't special summon monsters due to its effect, making the opponent the automatic winner of the game. It leaves a terrible taste in the mouth of most players, but it's a win-win, which is why this banned card is not coming back without a serious change. Number 6. Skill Drain. There are a lot of cards on this list that restrict players from doing something incredibly basic. For instance, Royal Oppression prevents special summoning. They're all great cards, but Skill Drain is both the best and most easily abused among them. Whereas most decks are still somewhat limited themselves by trying to play around their Floodgate cards, Skill Drain doesn't require any such thing. A player can simply play a deck designed to only summon giant beatstick monsters that don't do much else. while leaving their opponents stuck with smaller monsters which have good effects, and suddenly the path to an easy win is there. Number 5. Imperial Order. This card is the fault of Konami not realizing how the game was going to evolve down the line. It seems simple enough, negating all spell cards on the field, even having a cost of 700 life points to keep the card up or see it destroyed. The trouble is, players using the card can build their deck around it. It doesn't take much to reduce the number of spells in a deck to get the maximum usage out of it. It's been brought back since its initial banning, but that's only because now there are so many monsters and traps that can destroy cards. At that time, the best bet was another spell card, which players were shut off from. Number 4. Macrocosmos. Macrocosmos has been limited, meaning players can only have one copy in their deck, for several years now. The card has a simple sounding effect. Any card played while it remains on the field is sent to the banish zone instead. This seems more annoying than anything else, but the game eventually evolves so the graveyard is more like a superhero's death. In other words, completely temporary. Macrocosmos being activated could obliterate a player's turn, as banished cards are impossible to retrieve from the graveyard for most decks. Its ability as an anti-meta card is what caused Konami to whack it. Number 3. Trap Dust Shoot. This is a card that was particularly dangerous during eras when players tended to have more cards in their hand rather than on the field, meaning it's the nightmare of slower formats. Trap Dust Shoot seems simple enough, as it's only asking the player to put back one card out of a hand of 4. However, the fact that it specifies monster cards means that it could force the player to put back their only monster. Plus, it allows the opponent to see the player's hand, meaning that they can strategize for what they can and can't do. Number 2. Exchange of the Spirit. Though Exchange of the Spirit has more recently made a return to the world of Yu-Gi-Oh!, when it first became meta, it was one of the most terrifying experiences a player could have. It was part of an FTK that involved using Makura the Destroyer to activate a trap on their own turn without needing to set it first. The player would shove their entire deck into the graveyard, then activate Exchange of the Spirit, which caused them to swap it back and force the opponent to switch their empty graveyard with their deck. Since attempting to draw when you have no cards in the game is an auto loss, the player would then lose before they ever got to play the game. Number 1. Solemn Judgment. Until recently, this card could only be used as a single copy in any player's legal deck. It's not hard to see why. Solemn Judgment is probably the most powerful trap Konami has ever produced in the game. Often referred to as God Says No by players, Solemn Judgment is a trap that stops any player from doing, well, literally anything. It can stop a single summon, spell, or trap card activation. A player can literally negate whatever they want from you. Best part? The card says, pay half your life points, which is something you can do as long as you have at least 2 life points. That's all in this video. Which Yu-Gi-Oh! Trap card do you think has the most mystical potential? Let me know that in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.